All right, so we had our bands, right? So we had our longitudinal band, which is the skull lift, closing down the SI joints. We had our lats and glutes and hamstrings. One trick we used for the lat engagement was pretending you're a cork screw, right? You're opening up, you're pulling the arms down, which pulls the neck long, kind of gets you that longitudinal engaging close, and that oblique strap to close down the opposite. And then if you're doing both arms, both sides at the same time. And of course the core, right? We always want to be engaging the psoas and the QL. And of course, the one thing we didn't really mention is like your transverse abdominis and your obliques definitely insert into that thoracolumbar fascia. So it's a connector to all of them. So when we're engaging the abs and we got this big X here in the front of the sacrum, that's helping us close down as well, because it's all coming back to this and engaging it, holding it nice and tight. Simple in understanding, hard in practice. So let's run through a few of those together. Breathing, right? Start with the measuring stick hands. Engage. You're also expanding the diaphragm. Trying to expand the fascia here, and that's right on the opposite end of the diaphragm. It's okay for the diaphragm to come forward a little bit, but make sure it's coming out wide as well. And that corkscrew idea, another big muscle, was the serratus anterior, which you should feel here. Pulling wide. Not only rib cage goes wide, but your shoulder blades are getting pulled a little wide. Trying to get those shoulder blades out of the equation. Pull them down. Get the neck really long. Let's practice our shoulder turning in. Let's do one at a time. Have that right turn in, elbow turn in, then hand turn in. And now this is the hard part, the shoulder turn out, elbow turn out, and then the hand turn out. Let's do that on the other side. Shoulder turning in, elbow, then hand, shoulder turning out, elbow, then hand. Almost like you're trying to reach a little bit. And let's do them both together. Take a decompression breath. Big and tall, get that neck long. Open up those hands. Let's go out first. Shoulders turning out. Elbows turning out. Find as much tension as you can, then let the wrists go last. Ooh, that's terrible. All right, shoulders go in. Elbows go in. And then the wrists. One more time at external rotation. Shoulder out, elbow, elbow, wrist. Now let's scoop this up. As you're starting to reach for the sphere of tension, think about your core muscles, your abs, your obliques, your psoas fighting as the hands reach. You got those two pieces of paper in between your triceps. Those pinkies together. And breathe. Let's bring that overhead a little bit. And back down. Let's pull that sphere of tension all the way down. As it starts going down, you can pull the shoulders down, get the neck long. Hands down by the hips. A few breaths right here. Feeling that neck today. Let's go ahead and go into hip hugger. Let's first grab our hips with both hands and rotate them in. Not enough where we pull the SI joint apart, but just a little bit. And then rotate the hands. Elbows squeeze, core stays really strong here. Breathe in between the shoulder blades. You do this little flapping motion where I'm kind of inhale, I pull my elbows apart and then squeeze them close together. So I'm filling the space and trying to get that isolated shoulder motion. Fill the space. Then you're getting the shoulder motion just here. So the lat attaches here in the front. It's a big internal rotator, the shoulder. Some of us were kind of like here all the time, so that lat's just so tight. So we still want to engage it because it's a big, it's our oblique sling, right? It's part of it. So that's one good trick, is opening up, teaching that lat to be worked in a more lengthened position instead of always just being short where it's pushing the hips forward. As soon as we get the hips back, just doing that is good engagement. Another good one is, especially if you do any like front rack with the bar and your elbows just won't come up, that's the lat issue too. It's not a wrist issue. So we can do that with the trace. So good big decompression breath, measuring stick hands. You know, we want to fill up the cylinder. That's sometimes all you need to get a good lat stretch right there. And the neck is pulling or wide. All this should close down, force close the sacroiliac joint. Spend a lot of time there today. And then we'll trace up just to the armpits, kind of right below the collarbone. You can bring your thumbs into the collarbone and squeeze your elbows close to your body. That's a good lat position right there. Big inhale. We're going to hinge now, so hopefully we got some good closure on our SI joint. So when we hinge, it's all in the hips. Kind of just going down slowly with each breath. Find that tension in the hamstrings. Make sure the hips are pulling behind you. Get that weight out of the front of your toes, but still gripping with the feet. Should be really shaking the arms. All right, let's do a few reps. Up a little, down a little. Breathe with it. Let's step our left leg back, stay in the hinge. Let's release those arms. They're probably tired. Then you're the corkscrew again. You're squeezing the arms of the corkscrew, trying to pull the cork out. The cork is your spine. It's getting longer. And have a glass of wine. Reach. As you're reaching the hands, pull the hips back. That should activate both feet pretty good. Keep checking in with your SI joints. Ask yourself, are they closed down? Reach those hands up a little bit. And then we'll rotate off to our right. Just a hair. Make sure you're really actively pressing into the ground with the right leg before you pull the left hip towards the right hip. Make sure it doesn't happen at your sacroiliac joints. You want it to happen at the hips. Let's hold there. Maybe sink a little deeper. Keep the spiral. Big inhale. Let's take the spiral overhead. Keep the oblique sling tight. As the weight transfers from the front foot to the back foot, keep gripping the ground with that front foot. Bring it all the way overhead. Let's Let's try to get that heel to tap the ground nice and lightly. And up. Do 4 more of those, 4 little taps. Don't let it clunk down, to slightly graze the mat and then come back up. All right, let's trace down. We'll end with stability. Good. So let's do big decompression breath. Let's go a little more narrow. Not all the way narrow. Big decompression breath. Fill it all up. Get that tension. Really think about closing those joints. The more we activate more wide, they will close down. Hamstring tension is another way to know that they're closed. Trace up the armpits. Thumbs kind of like outer collarbone, and then now you're like a mini corkscrew. You're squeezing those elbows in. Make sure you're keeping that tension in the back. We've decompressed, we got some tension. Don't arch yourself and lose it. Don't lose the height in the neck either. And we will hinge slowly. Let's do 5 little reps here. We'll inhale up, exhale down. Stop low, right foot back. Keep that hinge. Arms behind us. Squeeze those triceps towards your body while keeping the spine really long, neck really long. As we scoop up, make sure you pull your left hip behind you. Really fight for more and more hamstring tension. Raise the arms, pull the hips together. The hip together. Really plant the left leg. It should all be really, really planted anyways. Then turn the right hip towards it. Should just add more hamstring, some spinal tension. Now let's take this overhead, really strong core. Front leg really strong, planted in the ground. Overhead. Let's do 5 breaths. Try to get that heel to the ground. All right, good. Let's trace out of it. Whew. It's the posterior chain, right? It inserts that fascia, the longissimus, which runs to the transverse processes, goes there. The costalis, which goes to the ribs, goes there. Then we have our lats, also go in there. So a lot of big muscles coming in and attaching as the fascia is going to insert this anterior border. So it's going to help pull and close. The more we lengthen, we're kind of locking that sacrum to the ilium. So we get into the deeper hinging like we did today. Hopefully these are staying stable. They're kind of got some irritation afterwards. Go back to maybe just the breathing. Just the breathing, you should close those down. It's the hinging that comes hard. Let's do that one-legged trace he was just doing when he got in here. You can definitely do it on the ground, but let's challenge ourselves with the standing. Let's go bad leg first, right leg. Thumb right here. Hold that sacroiliac joint down. we're going to bring the left leg up. Actually, sorry, opposite. Right leg up. Because that's the one that's moving, right? As we turn in, we don't want the SI joint opening up. So make sure it's coming from the hip joint. So it should be kind of tough to get that heel to swing around and touch opposite shin. Once you're there, you can trace up. Do a little measuring stick hands just to make sure your core is tight. Do a little press in there. Big and tall. Once you feel stable in the SI joint, you can just let it go. Scoop both hands up. Let's press away. Heel digging into the shin, neck getting really long. Let's go overhead with it. All right, good. And trace down. Same thing on the right. We're gonna pinch that ilium bone as we rotate. Try to get that motion in the hip, on the shin, coming up. Little adductor, isometric, press into that thigh. Let go. Or if it feels good, you can keep it there. Sphere of tension, height of the heart. And lengthen the neck. More important to lengthen the neck than bring the arms up overhead. If you're struggling here like I am, I'm just gonna stop and suffer. If you got the balance, you can scoop it up overhead. But if you're already feeling like you're at the edge here, and bringing the arms up is just gonna, the battle's gonna win up top, where the lat starts pulling more here, and the body starts arching. That's not so good for those joints. So it's better to keep the core strong here. Even here sometimes, even the arms up there. Sometimes just get the arms low first. As your core is strong, you can kind of slowly breathe. Just like we hinge down slowly. Sometimes I'm here, I go fast, I can feel those SI joints just pop open. Sometimes doing our elevator style thing, just kind of top floor, fifth floor, going down slowly. That way you can kind of focus on where you're supposed to be closing down, keeping the engagement. The more the cylinders expanded, the more safer you are down here. Questions on that? Now you've seen it a second time, you two? Starting to click a little bit, or not stop clicking? The tricky part is the breathing muscles, pulling these shoulder blades apart. And diaphragm, especially when we're lifting, I see a lot of like weightlifters that get under the bar. They don't arch, right? They try to almost lengthen the thoracic spine, maybe even come into flexion, just a hair. So we kind of lock and lengthen it. And that's kind of what we're going for too. We're pretending there's a lot of weight in our body. So we got that bar, we got our heavy weight, locking it, we're lengthening it, and that's going to allow us to engage a lot here. So we don't want the diaphragm just going out with the breath. It's kind of that big, expansive, wide breath as we come down for our squats. So let's do a few squats and feel how the SI joints feel. If you want to wait, it's a little heavy, but Jessica gave us her 15-pounder.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's cute. Who wants it?
Give
I'll
it
take
to
it.
All right.
The weak one.
Vic.
So, a couple ways you can do a squat with a kettlebell. A lot of good different ways you can off balance. Like to always reach for it. And I'll just grab it with one hand, kind of swing it through the legs and just catch it with a little squat. And then we hold it in this goblet position, which is similar to what we just had before, where the arms are up in the clavicles. You'll notice as you go down, you'll want to like push it away because your head will hunch. So keep it close to the chest, and that'll keep you a little bit more honest as we get big and breathe, and then come down. Turned into a southern accent as I went down there. And then pressing out strongly. And I like to think of hip thruster.